Welcome to episode 191. Apologize for the late start, everybody. I have a little bit of technical difficulties with the exporting a thumbnail. Hopefully it's up there now. How you doing this morning, Bill?
Doing great. Looking forward to talking some Star Trek after a week off last week. And this is a special topic that I think you can only count it once, at least for this go-around for you. We're recapping your kind of full rewatch of at least the completed series of Star Trek. I can't wait to dive in and go some, have some big picture conversations about your experience with rewatching over the last few years.
Yeah, it should be a good time. I'm excited to be back as well. Talking about Star Trek, and especially this topic. It's you're right, Bill. It's definitely a special time. You guys know that I was at the end of Deep Space Nine, which was the end of my first rewatch, my first proper rewatch. I don't include the newer stuff just because I'll talk about it in a little bit, but or the movies really. I usually sporadically watch the movies as I need to, as like a supplemental if I need a break from something or other. It's a good kind of break from the normal rewatch. So I'm excited to get into it. But before we do, Bill, how has your rewatch been going? I know I saw on Twitter you watched a lot yesterday.
I did. I am a little bit over the halfway point of season 5 of Voyager, season 7 of Deep Space Nine. So I'm coming down the home stretch with DS9, and for the foreseeable future, at least, the period of my rewatch where there's two shows kind of interlocking. Pretty soon here, I'll be going to just Voyager for a couple of seasons, and then just Enterprise, and then into some new stuff. So I watched. It's kind of hard to taking this week off, like where it began, but where I was, I think I was right around like Nothing Human and Covenant. So I want to say since the last time we did this, it's like 30 days through. I
love 30 days.
Dark Frontier for Voyager,
nice.
And then for Deep Space Nine, I want to say it's Only a Paper Moon through. I watched Chimera last night. Was the last one, so good handful of episodes for each show. Lots of great stuff. You mentioned 30 Days. That's a fun one. Counterpoint for Voyager is a huge favorite of mine. Yeah.
I forget that's only a 45-minute episode. In my mind, it's a two-parter, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really thick. There's a lot going on in it. It's a really rich script, I think. One of Kate Mulgrew's best episodes.
I think.
Good. Yeah. Bride of Chaotica, I think, gets better every time I watch it. It's really silly, really funny. Dark Frontier is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Deep Space Nine, it's Only a Paper Moon is full of heart and really true. And I think one of the more human episodes of Star Trek. Really like Chimera, which I just watched. I think that's actually a pretty good episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, a lot of good stuff. Excited to be coming up on that last stretch of Deep Space Nine episodes that we just kind of talked about last week with the rewatch. I feel like we covered that stretch especially a good bit, and talk broadly about like how they fit together and the strengths and weaknesses of that run of episodes. Yeah. So, look forward to hitting that myself and kind of thinking about it through the lens of conversations we've had over the last few weeks.
Yeah. Cool.
And you don't have a rewatch recap.
I don't.
This is a
full-fledged
yes
rewatch.
But before we do that, we kind of talked about this offline, maybe doing this. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. I want, if you can, pull up an episode list from Voyager season 5, and here on the show, I'm going to ask you for your top 5 list. For my weekly surveys online on Twitter, piecing together top 5.
Okay.
Each season of
Putting
Star Trek.
me on the spot. So this is Voyager season 5, correct?
We're on Voyager season 5.
Okay.
So that started
That's
running
a
on
tough
Friday.
season because that's one of Voyager's best seasons. Oof.
It is. It is. It's also the season I'm watching right now. So a lot of these episodes are really front of mind as I'm kind of looking at responses coming in, and a lot of variety in answers for this season. Some seasons with this project, I'm noticing that you get like 3 or 4 like heavy favorites that are way out in front for the vast majority of the survey being
tough.
open.
3 to 5 will be tough for me.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a tough season. This is jam packed.
It is.
Well, I can easily do the first 2. So my first pick, I have my notes open. I'll just try to remember.
I got
Timeless, number 1, easily. That's probably my favorite. Spoiler alert to later in the show. Probably that's probably my favorite episode of Star Trek right there. And then Someone to Watch Over Me is number 2, and then I will go. Man, there's some great episodes at the front half that are just like all-timers for me, at least for Voyager. But then there's also some like back half stuff that are really good. Yeah. I'll go Drone 3.
Got it. All right, I'm gonna do. I love that it's tough.
This stuff. I'll do Night 4.
Night, got it.
Okay. And I'll go Counterpoint. 5.
Got it.
I liked 30 Days.
Yeah.
Dark Frontier's good. I like Juggernaut. I like Equinox a lot as well. That's a tough season. That is a tough season to go with. I think Night probably most recently, just because we're talking about favorites here. I think just because the experience we kind of just had with some isolation in our lives. I really do. I think that's one of the most episodes that has grown on me since. So, yeah, that's my top 5.
Love it. Appreciate that. I think we'll maybe make that. We might incorporate that into.
I think that's moving forward. We gotta keep doing that. Yeah.
Yep. If there's an open survey that week, we'll have to tackle it that way. But yeah, season 5 so far, I can just tell you, the responses are really pretty spread out. There are a lot of episodes that get multiple votes. Like it's a really well spread out. I think that's a testament to the number of really good episodes.
Yeah.
In that season. So I guess we should jump into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm curious to hear anything you kind of want to bring to the table and talk about as
I'll try to hit.
Kind of wrap.
Yeah, I'll try to hit some.
I have a lot.
Cool.
I have a lot of questions too. I was just gonna say it's gonna be kind of a half interview, half testimonial on your part.
I'll kick this off and then just jump in.
Yeah.
So, if you guys don't know, I'm just going to recap just this rewatch in general and pretty much kind of my Trek fandom in general as well. So, I think how I got into Star Trek, I'll just that's just the easiest way for me to start. So there was reruns of Voyager on Spike TV when I was growing up. I got into that the first couple seasons, but I always had to go back to school when like it just started to get good, like season 4 and season 5 in there. So I never really completed watching it on reruns on Spike TV. but then maybe a year later or so, maybe a little less time. Star Trek '09 trailer dropped or something like that, and then I had to wait until the movie came out. And then also at that time, Netflix was actually just becoming a big thing, and then so after '09 came out, then I got a Netflix subscription, and I was able to watch it. But I watched everything. I think I started with Voyager, and then I ended with Deep Space Nine. So was similar to this rewatch. But that was over like a almost 8-year period, maybe a little more. So when it came time to, I don't know, I wanted to rewatch it. I also had just met Bill, and then and I had just ventured into like Star Trek Twitter, dipping the toe in, but I've always wanted to. During that time, I'd always listened to Star Trek podcasts and things like that. So I always wanted to do that. So I I started a rewatch technically, and it started in late 16, early 17, and finished probably a couple weeks ago. Yeah. But for me, my rewatch strategy is more long form. I look at it as I cite it as the Golden Gate theory, but it's more of like a long form deep space mission, right? I'm deep diving into a specific show for a long period of time, being able to let the episodes breathe. And this is not a knock at Bill at all, but Bill has 2 shows running simultaneously, similar to how it was, how it came out in 98 or 96 or whatever. My strategy is a little bit different, and I feel like it's the best of both worlds, where I get to experience the episode as fresh as possible, but also just gaining knowledge and experience of the episode to be able to talk to you guys about it. So, man, it's been a long road. Another benefit of those long form, like kind of deep space rewatches is like I think back to watching TNG and what was going on in my life then when I was rewatching that is going to be different in my next rewatch. So I'm going to again see, because I'm going to be, this is not just a one-time thing. I'm definitely bought into the constantly rewatching. So I'll keep doing that, but long form, I think. But I'm going to come at the episode not as fresh as the first time, but still fresh enough to where I look at it as fresh as possible, but also because it's at a different point in my life, I look at it from a different perspective. So that, if that makes any sense, if I'm making any sense, that just kind of helps me view the episode in a little bit different light and hopefully find different insights. Bill and I talked last night, there's over 800 hours, so it's even going from cover to cover, so to speak, you're still gonna stay pretty fresh. But also, I think when you give it that time to breathe, and recharge the battery and recharge the warp core, and all the techno babble, I'll be ready for another rewatch. But yeah, that's basically a summary of this rewatch. 4 or 5 years of constantly rewatching. As far as timeline goes, moved, different places I lived, things were happening in my life. It's just tough thing to close, I guess, as a chapter in my, not just in my life, but in my Star Trek fandom. But very excited for some time off. And some time off plans I'll definitely talk about at the end of the show. But yeah, Bill, do you have any questions, or should I just keep going?
No, I got lots of questions. You kind of answered the first one. When did this rewatch start? I think you said like late 16, early 17, kind of in that
Voyager.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you started with Voyager and you ended with Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
Do you remember what order you went in between? Like, what did you watch after Voyager?
I think it was Enterprise. And then it was TNG. Or maybe TNG or TOS. You can flip off those. And then I started 2020 with Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
So,
okay. That was my second question.
Yeah.
Like what order you went in. This is maybe kind of a broad, like, you've kind of answered this through your kind of opening, but do you think you're a different kind of, is your fandom different today than it was when you started this rewatch?
Man. Can of worms. I think so. I think you I don't know. And speaking for my speaking for me, I think I am. I think the more I rewatch, the more I appreciate it, and the more I love it. But that's my personality. That's how I view colors. And I'm not speaking just Star Trek, but there's other movies specifically I watch every year. And this goes into another note that I have. It's time helps you like cut away all the non-important episodes and episodes you don't really remember. If it's a truly good episode, or the mark of a good episode, it's you're remembering it 4 or 5 years later, like timeless. Like I remember that. I remember what happens, but I still love it. And I think that's similar to the other stuff. But I think my fandom has changed. To answer your question, is like the more I rewatch, the more that I know what I like. So I guess more experience. I don't know. Maybe I don't know, but hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's because of the length, like you said, the long haul of it, and that it covered years of your life. And you kind of mentioned you were a different. This is like overlapped with various changes in your life, places you've lived, and jobs, and all that stuff. So it kind of goes without saying, I think, that I would be surprised if you said no, just because of the length of time.
No.
How about what? Maybe the answer is nothing, but what opinion changed as a result of this rewatch? Like, are there things that you maybe thought about Star Trek, a specific show, a thing more broadly, an opinion that you had about it before you started this, long running go round? Did anything change because of it?
An opinion. Yeah, there's some opinions that have changed. I felt like at the beginning of the rewatch, like if it would, I feel like I'm more open to different episodes. I think my opinion usually would line up with the masses, but I think I've slowly learned to maybe just form my own opinion of episodes instead of relying on Trek Twitter or a podcast to tell me what I should think about an episode. I tried to go into an episode as giving it a chance as possible. There are some episodes like Prophet and Lace and some other these really stinkers that I had definitely a tough time even hitting play on because I know the reputation it comes with. But yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like I was more of a Trek snob at the beginning of this, and now I feel like I'm more open to episodes like Let He Is Without Sin, and be able to display those episodes proudly. So yeah, that's kind of, I think, how I've changed.
I'm glad to hear that. I think one of the reasons I started doing the top 5 survey for each season is kind of stuff we would talk about a good bit on and off air, that, you know, it feels like, you know, I feel like we've talked about it through a few different contexts, but what you just mentioned, like being able to kind of shed what groupthink says, or what, you know, what the masses would say the classic episodes are and what the bad episodes are, being able to kind of have your own experience and genuinely have your own opinion on things like that.
Or even from what I remember from my first watch, like taking those memories and just setting those aside.
Yeah, that's huge, and I feel like one of the benefits of doing what I've been doing with the survey is it kind of, when I post like the results, you can see that every episode, give or take, you know, minus maybe over the whole thing I've done so far, going back to TOS, like,
yeah,
you can probably count on 2 hands how many episodes got no votes at all. Like, they all get representation, and oftentimes more than one. So that kind of just goes to show that, you know, these opinions are not unanimous, and different people have different episodes that really resonate with them. And I think what you kind of talked about with, you know, allowing yourself to experience these episodes like that is really important. And not be afraid to have a different opinion about it, like an episode or something bigger than that even.
So there, just moving along, some more stuff that I have in my notes.
Sure.
There are some things that I'm gonna take and just leave with the rewatch. I'm gonna take some see or skip it types of things from that I did in this rewatch and plan for the next rewatch. But some of the things that I'll leave with this rewatch are just like, I talked about it kind of at the top of the show. It's just like my point of view of the episode and my lens through the episode is gonna change because life changes, and I think that's one of my favorite things about Star Trek and rewatching is that thing. And then also through those ups and downs, you can there's always a constant. Star Trek is constant, and it helps me through those ups and downs, but also coming back to it, I think I'm gonna remember those ups and downs. I'm gonna remember what was going on when I was watching this episode, and then get really nostalgic, which I already get nostalgic with Star Trek in general, so this is just gonna keep just compounding, which should be an interesting time. But yeah, I just really appreciate that. That's one thing that I love about these long form. Another thing that I love about these long form rewatches is that through the ups and downs of life, there's always this constant that I love, and so yeah, just want to get that out there as well.
No, that's really good, and I think that's key. I think that's one of the benefits. Like, if people carry with them, like, from my perspective, I can't speak for everybody, but from my perspective, even somebody like me who's, when I start my next rewatch at some point, that's number 4 since I've been on Twitter, but probably number
14.
Yeah. Somewhere between those two numbers, maybe.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a long time, but what's the point if you don't shed some degree of, like, this is what I thought last time? Like, kind of the whole point of revisiting the whole thing and not just watching your favorite episodes is trying to discover something new in the episodes based on your own place in life at that point, like we were talking about. So I'm glad to hear that. I think that's really important, and I think that's what makes the rewatch worthwhile. You know, if you just want to watch the episodes that you love, you could do that. You could just pop on Timeless because you know you love that one, and pop on Someone to Watch Over Me when you're feeling romantic and you feel like a rom-com. You can do that. Like that's one way to do it. But the benefit of the rewatch is definitely to look for new insights and new opinions and how you changed through watching it. So cool. This is kind of broad too. It can kind of cover like the easy question here would be like, what's the best episode of all of it? You kind of answered that. You probably said Timeless.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of more interested in hearing like, go ahead.
But you said best.
Well, that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole thing, and I've got that on my notes too.
Best and favorite are two different things, I think, that we've covered a good bit, and we should talk about here because that's a major part of this whole thing. But that's why I'm avoiding that. I don't really want to do best or favorite here. I want to ask you, what episodes do you think best represent what you love about Star Trek? Like when you think about why you go back to it, why it means something to you. Are there episodes that you would point to and say, that's why that show resonates with me to the point where I'm committing to watch it forever, basically?
Yeah. I think my favorite episodes usually tend to be episodes that make me emote or deal with emotions or things like that, and deal with relationships, I think, are probably my favorite episodes, just because I think that's one of the reasons Star Trek kind of stands out from other TV shows and other even sci-fi shows and movies during this time and in the future, is that an episode will carry so much weight that I'll be thinking about it days after I watched it. There are movies like that, but on a consistent basis, I mean, it can be some weird, wacky, braga sci-fi concept that I'm thinking about days and weeks after I watched the episode. And I can't say that a lot about... I can say that about some movies maybe, but other TV shows, I'm not sure. So I think that's kind of what... I don't know, to come back around. Those are the types of episodes that I like, is things that make you emote, but also just... and this is very broad, but episodes that have something in them that just makes me think about that episode days after. So,
what kind of examples do you have?
I'll give it like Dragon's Teeth. Like that episode is not this. I'm going to mention a lot of Voyager because,
sure,
yeah, spoiler alert, it's my favorite. It kept me thinking about, that what if. That's what it keeps me up at night. What if we had a season about this? What if we had a season or a spin-off show about this civilization and all that stuff? Or what if we had a season based off this whole thing, like we did with Enterprise season 3? What if we had something like that? So it. I wouldn't say it's the best episode out there, but it has things in it that just, to this day, I'm like, what if? Such a cool backstory.
Yeah.
Got a lot of meat on the bone. Such a cool sci-fi concept.
Yeah. Big scope. Yeah.
Big scope. Yeah.
Rob says it's one of his 5 favorite
nice
Voyager episodes. So
cool.
You got an ally there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you what your favorite thing about each of the shows you just watched
Cool.
is. So just the chronological, like what's the
start with
what's
DOS?
the thing you love the most about the original series? Yeah, like you boil it down to one thing.
It's just really comfort food, and maybe that's because of the campiness of the show. But I love, it's just the comfort level of that show, and then also I love that because a lot of modern shows can can sometimes, I feel like, hide behind production elements and big time actors and all these things. When this show stood on its own with just a great story, obviously, I would say strong acting, strong performances, but it didn't rely heavily on a big production element, and it's still, at least in my mind, relevant today. So, obviously, because we still have Star Trek on TV, so
Right.
yeah. But I think the campiness and the cheesiness, I think, makes for a great comfort food. So that's my favorite thing about the show. But I like the campiness and I like the cheesiness of it. So because I'm a campy, cheesy person. So TNG, my favorite thing is the just workplace drama aspect of it. I just find so many. Obviously, it's on a grander scale because they get put in bigger situations, but I see parallels in my work life in that show, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about that show, and then their relationships on varying degrees, which I feel like that's even in my life. I have like work relationships like that, so I appreciate that. Let's see, Deep Space Nine was first, technically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Deep Space Nine, my favorite thing is probably the writing and the story arcs. I know I went and rewatched some of the recap of Deep Space Nine at the end, and I feel like I sounded a little bit bitter of how they ended that show, but I think it's I want to come back and say that I don't hate how they ended that show, just a few aspects of it. So no, I really think that just from a storytelling aspect, it's so strong, and that's probably my favorite thing about that show. Is just the arcs and the changes in the characters and then the writing. I think is the best in Star Trek. So, real quick, moving to Voyager. Sorry to linger on Deep Space Nine.
No.
Voyager is the family aspect. It's my favorite show, but I think from the very beginning they feel like a family, and I think that's very unique to that show. And I know they've talked about in Star Trek where it's your family is kind of your crew, but sometimes, at least in my head canon, there's transfers and things like that. So I don't think it's truly a family, but yeah, the family aspect of in their relationships again. Talk about relationships. That's my favorite thing about the show. Enterprise is a little bit tougher. I think my favorite thing about Enterprise probably just they got kind of the I don't know, they poor Enterprise. They got kind of best of the both worlds, where they got some 90s era like structure and then modern era structure, and I think they were just really ahead of their time. I think that's one of my favorite things about Enterprise as well. Is they're really ahead of their time with the storytelling aspect, and yeah. So, do you want me to do the new stuff?
If you want to touch on that, like what you love about the new stuff broadly, for sure you can. Yeah, go ahead.
If you have favorite thing about the new stuff is, and we haven't really done a course setting to kind of talk about this, but so it might contradict myself. But I think for the most part, the new stuff has done a good job of stepping out of what came before. And breathing a new life into the fandom, because I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of I would say Voyager and Enterprise, they're recycling more ideas, and it just, the writing felt tired, and I think the franchise itself felt tired. Yeah, I think this is because it's on a new medium, it just breathes new life into it with new storylines and things like that. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can echo.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, you did. But that was the idea. I mean, I like that you touched on everything, and there's a lot to talk about. You can dive into each one of those little things could be an episode unto itself, like what you love the most about one show or the other. So, and I echo a lot of what you said. I think I'm on the same page with you. It sounds like Rob is too. He mentioned he has the same reason for Voyager, the family feeling.
Nice.
He has the same connection to that show. Jimmy77 says he always appreciated the professionalism and respect characters display to each other. I think that's a big deal too. I would echo that myself. I think
we all need some of that these days.
Yeah. Yep. Star Trek characters, especially the captains, are kind of heroes to him. Kind of provide a template for him on how to act in the real world. Yes, agreed. I would echo that as well.
But there's also some relatability as well. That's a big thing for me. Yeah.
Favorite characters? Who comes to mind? Like, if on a spit take, like rapid fire,
favorite
sort of
characters?
Like, who comes to mind?
Probably Kirk. Probably. I know people quote Picard. I'm a Kirk guy. I like the in my life, in decision making, I try to do the big three type of how to make a decision, right? In TOS, it's the big three. It's logic versus emotion, and emotion being the Doctor, and then logic being Spock, and then Kirk somewhere in the middle, and have to make a decision. And that's how I try to base all my decisions off. It's really easy for me, especially, to lean on McCoy and have a outburst sometimes. But yeah, that's probably favorite character. This go around, there's some underrated characters. I really like some of the Worf stuff. I think, especially just coming off Deep Space Nine, I think that's a great character. I always, and this is not an underrated character, but I always appreciate Data's arc. I think at least a lot of people just kind of write him off as just the computer on the bridge, but he does have some great emotional I don't know, growth, I would say.
Absolutely.
And if you guys don't think he has emotion, then we can have a conversation maybe after the show of why I think he does, but which I can't take credit for because it's a theory that's been out there. But yeah, I always appreciate the Data arc. I always appreciate a lot of the Voyager stuff. They have arcs too. I think there's a great Paris arc. He comes from a penal colony to an officer and a dad, and it's just great glow up. 7 of 9 has such a great arc, mirrored with the Doctor as well. The Doctor has like one of the best arcs in Star Trek, I feel. One of a smaller arc, which I find funny. There's some great, I don't know. There's some great arcs in Deep Space Nine, I will say, and some great Cardassian arcs. Better or for worse. Ducat, I think, has a very roller coaster, but there's some great stuff. Great arcs, great character arcs in. Yeah, Damar. He's one of my favorite season 7 kind of arcs because he starts as like this booze bag, I don't know. And then he becomes like a war hero at the end, and I just think that was kind of cool to see in one season, that transformation between you hate this guy, he's been second in command forever, and then he does something that frustrates me until this day, and then he becomes this drunken, tired old Cardassian, and then he becomes, sorry to talk about this guy for
no, hey,
but
that's
then
a huge one.
But then he becomes this rebel leader and all these things. I love it.
Yeah, I love the fact that the first time you see Damar, he's it's in like a really random episode. It's after Dukat steals the Klingon bird of prey at one point, and he's there's an episode, Return to Grace, in the middle of season 4 when Kira's on the bird of prey with Dukat, and Damar is just like an officer on the bridge. He's like Dukat's first officer. He's got a couple lines. He's there as somebody serving with Dukat, and raises an opinion here or there. And the strength of Deep Space Nine, like one of the kind of, you were saying, the arcs and the writing, is you take that character in the middle of season 4 as like a nobody on the bridge of a random Cardassian Klingon ship, and think about where he is at the end of the show. Like it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That show was able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think last week you mentioned on the or 2 weeks ago when we did the season 7 recap, you mentioned Kira's arc kind of also stands out.
Love that.
Where she is at the beginning of the show and where she is at the end, and the job she's doing at the end, which is teaching the Cardassians to do.
Yeah.
That's
That's cool. Yeah, because she hated the Cardassians. She was a rebel, and now she's helping them. That's awesome.
Yeah, agreed. Talk a little bit about the best and worst difference, and what you maybe did this rewatch change your? It
definitely changed it. I always
how do you?
Yeah, I always felt pressure that I had to find the best, or name the best, or all my favorite episodes were also the best, and that changed. I realized that I didn't have to always like the best episodes or always mention the best episodes. The best and favorite are different because it's subjective. It's what do you think is the best? What do you think is your favorite? And things in my favorite episode might not click with somebody else, and that's totally fine. I love that. But that's where I think and this is just a weird theory that I have, but I feel like favorite is going to become a little bit more important than best, because you get to, if someone's favorite is a testament to how they are as a person and what they like, and so you get to know that person a little bit better, and I just really appreciate and do the favorites better, because it's also easier to do as far as best. That's why I do the see it or skip it, because it's really hard for me, and I applaud people like Bill who try to dive into that best category with the rankings and things like that. I'll always enjoy that, but also I really like the favorite a little bit more, because I get to learn more about the person and what makes their favorite episode because of what episode they choose, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, no.
I could say some of the things that I say what I think is the best Star Trek, but that's also subjective to me, and that's my experience. So I'm not saying this end all be all, but if I say my favorites, that's just, I think that's and it turns into a better conversation, I think, in a more civil conversation, because when you're talking about favorite and best, especially best on Twitter and sometimes some Facebook groups, it's easier just to stay on the favorite side of things. So
it's a really good point.
Yeah,
you're 100% correct. And I love what you said about that. Like when you ask somebody like, "What's your favorite?" and you actually get their genuine answers, you do learn something about that person. You learn what makes the fandom tick, like what drives them to this stuff.
Yes,
it tells you what their taste is, and what makes them tick, and that is a more insightful conversation than trying to get super objective about it. And, trying to align with, especially when you deal with Star Trek, and especially older Star Trek, the original series and Next Generation. Like, there have been so many books written and lists made, and so many passes at like, well, what's the best episode of Star Trek? City on the Edge of Forever and the Doomsday Machine, the Best of Both Worlds, and like all these things are so cited so often that it can be difficult to like remove yourself from that a little bit and not allow that to drive your own thoughts. And I'm guilty of that too. I think that's kind of probably baked into my experience.
Well, that's
the point of no return to some extent. But you're right. I think the favorite conversation is the most fun to have.
But as a rewatcher, those are the balls you have to juggle, right? That's the beauty of constantly rewatching is you're fighting all these expectations and all these opinions, but then you also have yours, but then you're also trying to stay fresh in the middle. It's just I love that just constant juggle of all those things. So
yeah. Jimmy77 says see it and skip it is hard because he thinks you should watch every episode at least once.
I will agree with you, but if you're finding our podcast, you've seen it all. And so this is just that, and I've seen that, and it's a fair criticism. It is, Jimmy, but I think if you're finding us, you've definitely seen it all. I'm always going to push for more Star Trek, but it's just an easier ranking system for me to be able to find the essentials to get the story across. So, yeah.
For sure. You kind of touched on some of this stuff in your opening, your intro. You definitely talked about the best things about the way you've rewatched. Are there not things that you wish you could do differently, or like are there? What are the best and the less best things about the method that you use, the longer running? Are
there negatives to the long form?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I've talked about this on here or not. I'll be completely transparent and honest here with this, but I think as a person who has a podcast and a person who is in the Star Trek Twitter and fandom, I feel like, at least, and this may not be, but I always feel pressure to know the episode and know all the actors and know what happens, and be able to give this profound speech or things like that and know exactly what happens in the episode and the actors and all these things. Spoiler alert, I don't know those things. I have a vague memory of what happens in the episode, but I can't impress someone. Sometimes I can with the actor's name if it's a guest star that I love or
Sure.
or something like that, or an episode. But so yeah, I don't know the episode names and the character, or I know the characters, but I don't know the actors' names. And then so that's kind of I feel like a negative sometimes, especially with trivia and stuff like that, because trivia is very popular and things like that. But another negative is something that I envy Bill a lot is he's able to pretty much reproduce what it was like to watch two shows at the same time and kind of capture that. I would have loved to have been able to. I mean, I was alive during the 90s, but I was watching it, so I'd have loved to have 2 episodes of Star Trek a week and experience those and ask myself, okay, what was the best episode of the week, and be able to experience that golden era of Trek, which I think Bill's style does, where he Bill can talk to attest to it better than I can, but just your ability to be able to stick to how it came out originally, I definitely envy. And then also the frequency. I think if there was a job where I could just watch Star Trek all day, that would be it, because I just want to watch it all day. But yeah, I think not being able to jump around as much as well, that kind of hurts as well. And then also the way I'm probably gonna do it in the future. I really want to watch Voyager again and be able to. There's some podcasts that I want to pair that with, but I think, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, I'm trying to keep it as close to an hour. I'm looking at the time. That might not be possible. But that might be a long way away from me watching Voyager. But yeah, those two things are probably the negatives of my style. Or three things, I guess. Can't really jump around. Just to summarize, can't really jump around. The knowledge base, and then your way, Bill, is trying to recreate as Berman era as possible.
Yeah, I mean, just to respond to that one thing, like I think that recreation of what it was like in the '90s is important to me because I like you kind of mentioned you were alive but you weren't watching. I was old enough to. Mm-hmm. That's what I remember. I remember watching on Wednesday nights at 9:00 Voyager and at 10:00 Deep Space Nine.
I love that.
Like yeah. my memory sometimes is associated with kind of like pairings of episodes at certain points. So for all the nostalgic stuff you kind of mentioned earlier, like that kind of drives a lot of decisions and feelings about all this stuff. So that is probably a big part of why I do it that way. Mm-hmm. Where somebody who didn't experience it that way and doesn't put as much emphasis on wanting to recapture that feeling might not give a crap and not want to do that. Mm-hmm. And then, our good buddy Thad is starting a rewatch now and he's going alphabetically. Like that just goes to show, like there are as many ways to rewatch Star Trek as there are episodes of Star Trek.
That's completely on the other end of the spectrum. That's like it's jumping around to. That's crazy.
It's almost a way to. It's not random at all. It's quite the opposite of random. It's a very finite order, but it almost allows for a very random feel because you're getting episodes from. It's starting at the beginning. You got like absolute candor from Picard, and then you have, I don't know, an episode that starts with an A. I don't know. I'm on the spot.
Anomaly.
One, Anomaly. Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna have such a mix of episomes from our
now we're gonna watch Deep Space Nine, or not? Sorry, are you gonna watch Enterprise or are you gonna watch Discovery?
Which one comes first?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that just there's as many ways to rewatch as there are episodes, and just put a button. I just think the real answer to that is, I mean, you can poke holes and there's drawbacks and positives and negatives for all these methods, but I think it's really important for every individual to have
their own way,
their own way, and not to feel compelled to follow another path. Like you can bounce around and try it different ways, but stick to what you love and what works for you. And
that's the beauty of rewatching. There's no one way. That's the that's the beauty of rewatching. So just because I do it one way, you don't have to do it that way. So
I agree. I guess my last question is kind of what you're kind of alluding to maybe start wrapping this up and getting towards the conclusion. Like, what's next? How are you going to do it? If you're going to do it differently at all, like what wrinkles are you going to add in the future? When you do come back around, you mentioned you're going to take a little bit of a break. You mentioned you have some plans to kind of fill a gap and give yourself a little bit of a battery recharge in the meantime. So kind of take the floor and talk about what your plans for the
so my plan is to do another rewatch. Obviously, this will be 2.0. I haven't really named it. It's just the second one. But my plan is to continue what I kind of started with the end of TNG, I think, and maybe TOS, and then Deep Space Nine. The see it or skip it stuff, I want to go through. I want to have every show with a see it or skip it season. So I'll continue to do that, and maybe they may change, maybe they won't. But that's the tentative plan, and this could change. But probably gonna start chronologically. So start with TOS, then go to TNG. Then it might get flipped, because I might push Deep Space Nine back a little bit, but then to do Voyager, TNG, and Enterprise. I didn't mention it at the top of the show, but I did not watch the animated series. This rewatch, I probably won't ever watch that again, unless it comes up on a Trek After Dark or something. But yeah, but I guess in the meantime. And this all could change. It just depends on how I'm feeling. But tentatively, I do want to keep the long form. So it'll probably be another 4 or 5 years, or whatever it is, of watching Star Trek and talking about see it or skip it, and just talking about the essential episodes. But when that's gonna start, I'm not sure. I've got 2, I don't know how to say it in this Star Trek term, off-season shows that I'm going to be watching. They're still sci-fi, so I'm going to be watching. I started Battlestar Galactica last night, and then if I can find a copy, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, 1960s sci-fi show that I've been wanting to watch forever. So I'll be watching those 2 shows. Those 2 shows each have 4 seasons, I believe. I think. And then I should be ready to gear up for another rewatch. So I'm not sure how long that's going to take. I will say that at the end of Deep Space Nine, I will be honest, I did feel burnt out. I think season 7 took me too long. So I hope to remedy that in the future, but I also hope to do another video or 2 before I start the rewatch, my plans and things I learned from this past one that I'm going to go into the next one, and there's going to be a lot of content about me starting another rewatch, but I think for now I'm just going to enjoy some these 2 other shows. Jimmy mentions Babylon 5. That might... Stargate has also been floated by that as well. But there's also some great sci-fi shows out there. So I'm going to recharge the sci-fi batteries and get excited. And then probably... And it's not like I'm not out of Star Trek or not watching Star Trek. We've got Discovery on. We got Prodigy on. And we got shows in production currently, so it's not like I'm going to be not watching Star Trek. It's just I'm not going to have a proper rewatch going, and I probably will do my best to not do a jump around unless it's a Trek After Dark or unless it's a Pluto TV. I'm not going to jump around and do that, because I just want to take a step back away from Trek and then recharge the batteries. So yeah, those are my 2 plans moving forward, the 2 shows, and then locking in a solid kind of format and things I'm going to do with this new rewatch. Because Bill, you seem to make every rewatch a little bit different with things you bring to the table on Twitter and polls and things like that. And I definitely will hopefully get that. But yeah, it'll be good because we'll also have some more content for Trek Live. So I can't go too far away from it because we'll have episodes and stuff. But yeah, and I got a lot going on in my personal life, so I think it'll be good for me to step away from a little bit from rewatching. Not Trek Live, but
right.
definitely watching an episode every night. So it'll just be a different show.
I think that's good. I do it myself. When I finish a rewatch, I definitely do step away. Minus, if there's new stuff going on like there is now, I kind of let that take the lead and just be the only thing I really consume for that window of time. I might step away and watch a different show. I've done things like Mad Men and Downton Abbey in the past.
Sopranos.
Sopranos. Like find a show that's very different and just kind of step away for a little bit to get the juices flowing and make me want it again. Get hungry for it. I think that's important to give yourself that space. And like I said, with the new stuff, we're kind of entering into this phase of, I think, we might not have very many periods for a long time of weeks without new Trek. I think maybe a week here and there between shows and things like that, but it's going to be a pretty steady stream of new Star Trek to consume and think about. So even in those breaks, like you said, you still have some of those juices flowing. So I would always advocate for that. I just there's no wrong way to do it if you can stomach the continuous just bang bang bang, just keep going back. Sure, have at it. But even I, I've done it forever. I need a little bit of space, and I benefit from that space.
Yeah.
When I finish one before I start another.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Last things? Anything?
I don't think so. I just appreciate everybody in chat and who's watching after the fact. It's like I said before, it's I don't usually like change, but it's nice to be able to close the door on that chapter and just have that rewatch forever. But I'm excited and over the moon for the next rewatch. It's crazy and insane that may sound, but I thank everybody for watching. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. Twitter and our Discord server are the two best places. Next week is Thanksgiving, so I believe we're taking that week off. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. It's going to get a little bit sporadic towards the end of the year, especially with holidays and things like that. But just know that in the next year, we're going to have some good stuff. Some more Star Trek content, obviously. And looking forward to it. Yep.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.